the most successful organizations are the ones that actively build community. But think about it like a neighborhood. It's like I'm building one, they know someone, they know someone, they know, and then it grows from there.
If you build just for the elite, that's all you're gonna get, and you actually probably will fail. But at the end of the day, like, plan to have the people that matter at those events. Don't just design them for the super elite. Make sure that you design something that's connecting the elite with the people you help. And if you do that successfully, that's when the elite comes and they're like, oh yeah, my $600 filet mignon ticket did make a difference in this person I met's life.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Dr. Ortega, Andrea Ortega, thank you so much for coming. We met on LinkedIn, as I want definitely folks to find you there, of course, as well, and reach out and follow your organization and all that good stuff. But can't thank you enough for joining the show, and just happy to connect. Do me a favor, just introduce yourself, and then I know you have a couple of things going. It seems like you juggle a lot of stuff in the fundraising space. So tell folks about yourself and what you're doing, if you don't mind.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's really important to me to be in these spaces. And a little bit about me. So I have over a decade of experience running my own Grassroots, actually handed to me. And, I started a little bit, my background was in compliance. So really navigating, I was a consultant for forming. And so that put me into that very, I got my 501c3, where do I get money? And the misconception that people have when they get their 501c3, that money's going to drop on their lap. Yeah. So, I did that for a couple years as a consultant. We helped open over 4,000 nonprofits a year.
Wow.
But it was very, I ran a huge and wonderful team that I still talk to today on LinkedIn and even here in Central Florida. I live in Orlando, by the way. Okay. And I was also doing my PhD. I'm very we have to share our knowledge. I thought I was going to be a professor, but I don't necessarily think academia is always the best resource for nonprofit leaders. I struggled a lot with being a practitioner at heart, and then okay, you can read research-based practices around fundraising, but that doesn't teach you the hustle. Nobody totally. And I feel these spaces are where you get to hear from people oh yeah, you have to get recurring donors. Okay, but how do you do that? Where is that difference from what you read and what you attend a webinar to how do I actually get them? How do I turn them into honestly giving donors? And so my journey was that I finished my PhD while also being in the tech for good space. I did that for a couple of years after the consulting, and I love the tech for good space. One, because I think the tech space in general really knows, really has just kind of the execution style down. They get ideas, they iterate, and then they're able to execute, and I think I learned to apply a lot of that when I work with nonprofits. Aside from the efficiency too, right?
Totally, of course.
One of the biggest things I struggle with nonprofits I work with is we need money. I'm like, do you really though? Does your board give? Are they meeting regularly? Sure. Are they ambassadors? No. Okay, then how are you gonna ask for money when you don't have the foundation down?
Yeah, you just said efficiency. It's like, hey, another great question. Hey, is it easy for folks to give to you?
Oh my God. So during my time there, I actually gave a course on how to set up your donate page, your donate button. And
where were you at, if you don't mind me interrupting really quick?
Yeah, no worries.
Where were you at when you were doing this work?
It was called Resilia. It's a it's a tech company. And they were in the startup phase. So I was employee 40.
How cool is that?
And it was very, very cool. And I gave a webinar during my time there because I was the head of the academy and education. And 4 people after that webinar, which was sometimes hundreds to 200 people, they're like, I didn't even know my donate button didn't work. And I'm like, well, it kind of has to work for people to give you money. So, it's all those small things that sometimes we donate yourself, put $1. Do you like the experience of that, of that people have to go through giving? Are you sending the right message when people donate? And so small things like that sometimes we don't think about. I'm a huge fan of when I would throw events or a gala or a 5K, I'd be like, no one's buying tickets. I was like, buy the first ticket, break the seal. I used to call it
Totally. Yeah.
break the seal,
I say make the cash register make that sound, that ping sound.
Yeah. And like, I don't know if it's just kind of like that thing you put out in the universe, but like all of a sudden things start flowing because people are starting to see. So, and fundraising is a lot of that. Like, how do you turn these kind of behaviors
Momentum.
into, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, I love that. I also, we tend to solve problems in the nonprofit. It's like, we're overwhelmed. We need to hire. Do you have the processes correctly, the technology and the software to use?
Let's double click on that. Actually, it's funny that, because that's something we've been here. Well, I hear a lot about just paraphrase everything you just said, which is all amazing. It's like, sure, the tech space, you were in the tech for good space a long time ago, and the advancements that have happened in recent memory have been since COVID, basically, right? Have just been amazing. It's not like they weren't before, but these efficiency standards and like, like you said, like, hey, is your board giving? Is it easy to give? All of these things. And you just said something, you were talking about the user experience, which UX is becoming a big deal in the space, right? Like that's a conversation. Another interesting conversation is exactly what you just said. It's like, we talked to a lot of nonprofits. My partner does a lot of coaching for free with nonprofits of all shapes and sizes. And what's interesting, he did a poll recently, a survey, where it was, if you got a $100,000 gift or a grant, what would be the first thing that you would do? And most often, actually, it's I'd hire someone. And then we follow up and go, well, why? And I'm not saying don't hire people. Like we're growing our business too, on the for-profit side, but you're shaking your head back and forth because I don't know, why is that always the first? Because you've been an executive director as well too.
Yeah.
Is that always the first inclination? I'm not saying it's bad to bring people on board and they're not effective, but why is it? Why are we hearing that? Like, oh, we're going to hire someone. Like,
so
why is
I'm gonna be real because I'm a tough love kind of consultant. That is bad. First of all, you need to know if you need to hire before you ask for $100,000. Okay, I'm gonna go back there and this is I love your partner and coach. We would probably vibe a lot because that is one of the first questions I do in my conferences. That exact line, like, if I gave you $100,000 today, could you execute on that? Yep. And a lot of the times that's to reflect when they're writing grant applications. Like, that's really what the funder wants to know. They want to know that you are going to use their money efficient and that you can, really put it in place as soon as possible. Like put in all the things you're promising in your grant application as soon as possible. And to that, I want to say nonprofit leaders put themselves in we wear all of the hats because we have to. And something I would really love, like if you asked me like 20 years in my career, what would you love to have that change, is that like we shouldn't have to live one of the most underpaid, right? Like we don't have some of the highest salaries and, compared to other fields. Yes, we're the most educated and work even past our normal hours. But really, like, why do I have to be the fundraiser, the operations, and the HR and everything? Like, if we actually knew what we wanted to get to and how we're going to get there from a technology standpoint, from the amount of people to run that technology, invest in their technology, because I also work with organizations who they'll pay all the money for the Salesforce and then they don't invest in training the people who use it day to day. And it's like, well, of course you didn't like it. You weren't able to implement it correctly. And so, that question is just so great. It's intimidating, but you need to be able to say, we would hire. And if you are going to answer, we would hire, try that again. Like, we would hire 2 program directors. We have job descriptions written out. They would cover 50 students, really get into why would you hire? Yeah. And, consider a different, we would invest instead of hiring, we would invest in ABC software. We would also hire someone to train us over a 3-month period so that we can execute, Yeah. And I think, that's a huge part of I have a really awesome colleague and partner, and we talk a lot now about the scarcity mindset and nonprofit just consistently being in this scarcity mindset. And we need to be more, strategically placed in the abundance. There is money, there is ways to raise the money, there is ways to make money. Because if I was a paid tax preparer for a while as well, and I love bringing up when I work with nonprofits, their competitors 990s. A lot of them will be like, I want to be the United Way of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, have you pulled the United Way 990s?
Yeah.
I bet you most of their like income comes from services they provide and fees that they charge. Like that's just the reality. Most of of them have such a service like fee revenue model. And I challenge, a lot of that in the nonprofits I work with, mostly because they are small grassroots. But it's not impossible.
No, totally. You said something about these questions. So like that's a question I ask as well as what you mentioned. Will you hit the audience with some other questions that you're asking nonprofits that resonate? That they go, oh, aha, that's great. We didn't really think about that, but it's just part of your day to day. That audience can get some value out of, if you don't mind. They should be asking themselves.
Yeah, of course. That question, the $100,000, is great to kind of get them thinking on what those grant applications are. I love we need money. And I do really ask, like, do you have a board that gives? And I say that, and people who've maybe have heard me talk before, I'm like, I mean, your cousin shouldn't be on your board, right? Are they leaders in your organization and your community? Are they people that represent the community that you serve from very different, socioeconomic levels? And are they giving? Because we also tend ourselves to like, we need free, and free isn't always good. We have a website donated or whatever, and then it's 6 months later and they haven't even given it. If someone's going to offer you, and honestly, like if you're going to offer me a website, the next day I'm sending you an email with the deadline I want it by. Here's all of the assets I need in there, and like I'm going to be strategic and give you a job description for your volunteer role, And so, like, does your board give? Because also another scenario I like to place people, if they don't, what makes you think that they can get other people to give? If they're going to attend or represent your organization and they approach a donor saying, hey, could you give to so-and-so? And they're like, well, yeah, great. How much do you give? And they say, no, like, why would I? I love when organizations open their eyes that there are big organizations that charge $30,000 a seat annually to serve on their board.
Right. No, absolutely. It comes
there are, and they're like, they'll open their eyes and they'll be like, oh my gosh. And I was like, but they're donating their time. I was like, if they're just donating their time, then they should be volunteers or create an advisory board, or I serve on a leadership council where I only give my time. But if they serve on the board, they should give financially. Other questions I like to ask kind of deal around their operations. Mm-hmm. If they have something that really overwhelms them, like taking attendance for their tutoring program, was like, have you considered using technology?
Yeah,
totally. Like instead of taking attendance manually, like put a QR code. Half of these kids have cell phones. See if they can sign in with a Google form, because sometimes they're intimidated about investing. I'm like, do with what you got. Google Workspace is free for nonprofits, or a Microsoft Forms. And so just like questions around how they operate.
Mm-hmm. So like efficiency stuff.
Yeah. And those are some that I like to start with for sure.
No, I love that. We ask a question to every single guest as well. And it's fun actually, because, it brings out some top of mind stuff. No answer is always the same. So that's really, really cool. We say, and I want you to fill in the blank if you don't mind. We say fundraising is hard, no matter what size organization you run or how long you've been around. Fundraising is hard. Don't make it more difficult by doing what?
Fundraising is hard. Don't make it more difficult by making up data or impact that doesn't really reflect what you do. And I say that because I work, again, a lot of organizations in that startup phase, or maybe even they've been existing and are trying to apply to new funding. And, one of the scenarios I place them in is, I'm a huge Beyonce fan and she has Big Good Foundation. And I asked one of my clients, like, if Beyonce offered you $100,000 to build homes, would you say yes? Mm-hmm. And here's the kicker. She liked tutors after school. And she was like, yeah, of course, it's $100,000. I was like, do you know how much work that would be for you to build homes?
Yeah, it's a huge undertaking.
You're already overwhelmed with the tutoring program of the mission of like where you actually have data and community support. Like, The answer is no. Not all money is good money. So maybe that should be the saying. Not all money is good money.
Yeah, Don't
like,
think you can't be everything to everyone.
No. And so like there are people that will be like, oh, we might be able to apply for the grant, and then get surprised when they don't get it. I'm like, you manipulated the data, or you kind of made it sound like you fit. Like, stick to what you're good at.
Yes.
Like, stick to what you're good at. This is why I have the privilege to serve on the leadership council of an organization here that serves the unsheltered in Central Florida. It's called South Outreach. And the reason they've been so successful is because they partnered and have become a part of a coalition to help the unsheltered or the homeless in Central Florida. And it's like, they can write them in grants. They can write others in grants. They can actually execute on the things that they're good at versus like trying to make a program fit something. And that goes too with donors. Like, attend networking events that match what you do. Don't put yourself in situations, where, like you're just kind of desperate for money, because that honestly lands you half of the time in a bad spot. And I've seen it. I've seen when organizations, well, there's no money in the tutoring I'm doing, but there's money in this. So like, maybe we should open a program next year. And it's like, now you're starting over again, or like, at least for me, it's stick to what you're good at with your data, your impact, and really own that conversation.
I think, what I hear you saying over and over and over again is the intentionality of the work. And it sounds like you just like have a plan. And then another caveat that's very difficult for folks, whether you're in the for-profit, nonprofit, social impact, what have you, is sticking to that plan, especially when it gets hard, because we lack patience these days, right? And these things take time. There aren't any overnight successes in any industry, So I hear you saying that. I think it's can't be overstated. As a matter of fact, just be intentional. Have a business plan, have a plan.
Yeah.
Like, where, when we do get the money, I'm cool with being optimistic and glass half full and putting out in the universe. We're going to get the money, we're going to attract the right board members. We're going to attract the right volunteers and serve this mission and tell the story, accurately and appropriately. But it sounds like, you're just telling folks to be intentional, be efficient,
Absolutely.
have a business plan, stick to it. Have a 36-month plan, a 5-year plan, all of the above. And it might take that long, so.
Yeah. And, I come from also a time where like you used to pay all this money for create a strategic plan and PDF it and give it to people. And it's like, no, it should be a living document that you consistently like look back at, that you're like, if said opportunities come, you ask yourself, like, does this meet the strategic things that we put together as a team? Have the goals changed? Have we met them? Have we not? And it honestly should be some kind of living document that lives in there. But, fundraising in itself is it's a monster. And it's a monster in terms of like, not one size fits all. You don't fundraise the same for a food bank as you do for the unsheltered. You don't fundraise the same to the unsheltered as someone who's running like an association for professionals or things like that. And I think, to any of your listeners, I would say, and the reason I've been successful in both the nonprofit and for-profit is I find what I'm good at. It's this niche. I own it. I talk about it, and I stick to it, even when questioned or even when being doubtful. And if there's a gap, but the opportunity has dropped in my lap, there's room for everybody. Who is next to me? What other consultant fills this gap? Could we come together? A nonprofit, could we form some kind of coalition or apply together to this grant where we both fill the gaps of whatever they're trying to solve for? And if you think about that, that relationship sticks to fundraising when you're looking for an individual donor. Like, what kind of gap do they fill, both from a financial, but most people that give are motivated by something, either emotionally or someone they know or someone. So like, find out why they're connected to you and then make the ask. And that's how you do that,
It's so relationship driven that in the entire space, I think people, it's being spoken to. That point is being spoken to more and more, because it's not all analytics and it's not all monthly this and that. It's why, and realizing that the relationships are your superpower in this space. But you could really say that about any space, right? It's who you know, not what you know. It's who you know and how well you know them. And we're constantly hearing more and more about just like the most successful organizations are the ones that actively build community.
Yep.
And I read something from a friend on LinkedIn today. It was really amazing. And she said, think about it not like a city, but think about it like a neighborhood. So you know what I mean, where it's just digestible. It's like I'm building one. They know someone. They know someone. They know, and then it grows from there. But it has to start somewhere. So yeah, there's so many little nuanced things that we overlook. I call them fundamentals in
Yeah.
fundraising. We tend to overlook, and you can keep it simple and actually be very successful too.
Yeah. And just to add here, I don't know how much time we have left, but like for everybody who's wondering, my niche is grassroots nonprofit. So you're very like local, very present in the community, and also like that are Hispanic led. So I do all of my,
talk to that.
yeah, I can do all of my workshops and consulting in Spanish. And, philanthropy in itself was not really a system designed for us and our BIPOC led communities, but we got to learn the system and we got to learn to kind of play the game. And so I work really hard to bring our organizations while staying authentically. I have this running joke, and I hope any of your listeners send me a newsletter or write me like, the day I receive a newsletter in Spanglish, you're going to take all my money, because that relates to me. That relates to me.
Totally.
They've identified Dr. Ortega, who's given in the past, speaks Spanish. Maybe we send her, and like, if you are an organization that serves the Hispanic community, don't be hosting filet mignon galas. Like, bring empanadas and arepas and like the yummy stuff, the things that people in your community can relate to. And like, I'm a huge advocate and cheerleader for that. Like, really staying authentic to your mission in the community, and really taking organizations there. Because I have organizations. I've run five successful galas and been a part of a committee for two others, and there's successful because they match what's trying to be accomplished. But if your organization is very faith driven, and they the community and the donors don't really match that, honestly, $500 a seat that makes a gala worthwhile, because galas are expensive.
Totally.
Then do something different. Have like a like empanada contest. I don't know.
Yeah, a community experience.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Like you have to pick something that matches, and your fundraising plan and execution has to match your organization. Don't think just because, oh, I heard this org, ran a gala and they raised $100,000. I guarantee you they've been doing that for like 20 plus years. Their committee is probably all volunteer based, and they have sponsors that they've already built relationships. So they work their way up to making that. But galas are expensive. So yeah, when defining those kind of signature events, like, stay authentic to the people that are in your mission.
I love that. There's a lot of data. It's great for us.
Yeah.
We think it's great because we're in the event space, right? We help folks with events with their various fundraising events in various formats.
Yeah.
And to hear how much success folks are having with events, whether it's a gala or like you said, a community event where there's a cook-off or something along those lines, you could still have a raffle. You could still host an online auction that coincides with this. You can fundraise. I'm not talking about, deliberately crossing streams, but there are opportunities there to raise money as well. And there's so much good and so much giving that's happening in person. So that's been really, really encouraging to see. Have you seen that yourself? I mean, at least just in Orlando?
Yeah, I mean, I serve I'm the board member of an organization here called Mujeres in Marketing, and they've been very successful in building community through events. They're empowering. They've brought in really great speakers, sold out all of the past 3 events I've been at. And, a part of that is, again, because they're fun, but like, I'm a mom of 3. It can't just be fun. It has to really shape who I am as a professional and the communities I build for me to take time out of my day. And so, yes, people have found them valuable and they've invited their friends. And we're getting ready to launch our online community through Mighty Networks to help bring more people and connect them nationally. But their events are local, and their events have been very like word of mouth, and obviously Mujeres in Marketing, so they're all marketers, so they understand the behavior piece and the way that they appeal to people. But like I was very shocked, and like you're right, the the silent auctions. They don't always have to be fancy vacations. They could be small. Like we did a silent auction recently around an art gallery. So we invited local artists to donate a piece, and they were able to get some, and like, again, set up events that are authentic to you. Use software like that to help you, cash in on that. And oh my God,
be open-minded. It sounds like be creative, be open-minded.
Yeah.
Keep your audience in mind the entire time, right? Or at least the folks you're looking to appeal to. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and of course with our with the Salt Leadership the Salt Leadership Council I serve on, we do some events, and they don't have to be big. We decided to do small ones quarterly, inviting them to the mission so they can see the operations in Orlando. And I, like really hone in on the capacity of your team. Use technology to help with that capacity, train people on it, invest in it, and duplicate it once you find the formula that works.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and like I'm a big believer in less is more, especially with those events. Like you said, they're very expensive, especially the galas can be very expensive. And just making sure you get the right people in the room over time, utilizing your board, your committee, everyone, all hands on deck, of course. But you don't need to have, and speak to this a little bit if you don't mind with your experience, Andrea, is like, you don't have to have a 700 person event to raise a lot of money. And a 700 person event can get very expensive, right? Like, and no offense to anyone if they're super successful doing it and raising $1 million. That's fantastic. Of course, why fix it if it's not broken? But speak to this, like the intimacy and exclusivity of events like that, when they're a little bit smaller and maximizing their attendance. Yeah.
I think for me, whenever it comes to events, so if you've got like it stays true to your mission, your team can execute on the event, and maybe you launch and you're not selling tickets, or you're having trouble, you don't really know how successful it's going to be. It really comes to reaching out to your community. Like, how are you marketing? Have a guest of honor. I'm a huge fan. If this is your very first gala, I tend to turn it into a volunteer award, because volunteers will invite their parents. Like, I've been a volunteer for years, or they'll bring someone special to them and will probably pay a seat, because they understand they're a nonprofit. And so there's ways to fill the rooms without maybe in your first year. Just be realistic about that when you're budgeting. Don't go, oh, it's our first gala, I'm going to sell $600 tickets and we're going to have 100 people. That's not realistic. You're probably going to need to comp 20 people, including the people that are going to be volunteering, Take in consideration silent auctions. Those take a minimum of 9 months. Most corporations ask you to submit for any kinds of items with no less than 6 months, so like really plan ahead. But at the end of the day, like, plan to have the people that matter at those events. Don't just design them for the super elite, right? There's room for them because we want their money and we want their pockets, but like, make sure that you design something that's connecting the elite with the people you help. And if you do that successfully, that's when the elite comes and they're like, oh yeah, my $600 filet mignon ticket did make a difference in this person I met's life. Because that's where that kind of like thing that you didn't know was going to happen. And now they're more invested in that. So if you build just for the elite, that's all you're going to get. And you actually probably will fail. But if you build the event around the community and the people that you're serving, with extending the invitation to those who are that kind of pocket target audience, then you actually might be more successful. And again, if it's your first kind of event, either a gala or a brunch, there's some really nice brunches and things like that. Like, okay, the first fundraising brunch event, we're going to invite our top donors and volunteers, and we're going to give them an award and recognition. And that's year 1. Year 2, we're going to, continue to build on the momentum of whatever that event was, if it was successful, right? Like if you were able to hit on those minimum kind of goals that you set out to do. But
that's good groundwork. Yeah, that's good. I love that. No, great feedback for how to get, how to start something like that, start those kinds of galas and recognition dinners and all the above. I think those are great. Yeah, absolutely. Andrea, do us a favor. Tell folks where they can find you, the name of your organization, easiest way to find you, look you up, all the above.
Yeah. So again, Dr. Ortega, you can find me at Andrea Dr. Nonprofit or Palande Nonprofits on Instagram. I'm also super responsive on LinkedIn, which is where I got the chance to meet you and what HGA Fundraising does. And in LinkedIn, it's /Andrea C. Ortega and palantenonprofits.com as well is a way to book with me and work with me.
Awesome. What does Palante mean?
Palante is a Spanish word for forward. So it's like
okay, cool.
moving nonprofits forward. But,
I love it.
especially, it's a rare niche, like, a Latina with a PhD who works with nonprofits, who teaches nonprofit, topics in Spanish. So
yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's so funny. I was speaking to a friend of mine from El Salvador today, and I speak a pretty fair amount of Spanish. And I know your podcast. Oh, will you tell folks where they can find your podcast and all that stuff and what it's called?
Yeah. Palante Nonprofits podcast. It's Spanglish.
Okay,
and
cool,
I say that to the best because we kind of go, we try to stay authentic. I am Colombian, born and raised there until I moved to the States. And so a lot of my network includes that Spanish speaking. But yeah, I think again, the Hispanic market has significantly grown. So has the need. And, most organizations serve some kind of minority. And I think, it's kind of my goal to help Hispanic nonprofits or those that are BIPOC led move forward.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I told my friend just today, like I said, from El Salvador, I said I could probably do it. I just don't think I could do an entire podcast just in Spanish. I'm super close, and I love traveling abroad to Central and South America and using the language. I've had the good fortune of using the language for a couple decades now. So.
Well, I'm telling you, I have a mix of all. So hopefully we can have you on and talk a little bit about the platform and what you're trying to do with the sector, because it's so needed. I mean, think about people still with their clipboards doing silent.
No, totally. No.
Not shaming you all, but it is.
You got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere, but you got to twist the dial a little bit. You've mentioned the efficiency in data and software and technology multiple times we have in this episode. But you can really get lost in the data in a great way because you can learn so much. Mm-hmm. Just like in our space, if we have an auction item in a silent auction and it gets 8 bids and someone buys it for $3,000, well, you just identified a $3,000 level donor you might not have known. And you've got all these other folks that were willing to give up into this level, that you might not have known as well, where you can meet them, so there's just so much there, right? And that's just in our little space, right? But the efficiency and making it easy to give.
And organizations tend to shoot their shot everywhere. But if you've done multiple silent auctions, you could see what items actually get you the highest return of investment. So that the next event, you're like, okay, well, let's not email everybody. We know that these are the ones that sell for the least amount of work. Like, let's focus on those and get more of those kinds of items into our event. My God, I love this.
Love it. Yeah. So if I came on your podcast, I would say one of my favorite sayings, I don't know why, in business is negocios son negocios.
I love it. Well, and I apply that a lot to your board. That should not be your cousin or anybody close to you. Find people that understand that a nonprofit. No primos.
No primos. Yeah.
Yep. That's it.
Muy bien. Muchísimas gracias, Señora Ortega. That was awesome. Really cool.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. And this is your invite to come back in the future as well. And we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate everybody for joining us. Thanks so much. Do us a favor and reach out to Dr. Ortega on LinkedIn and show her some love, and her organization, Palante Nonprofits, as well, please. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Take care, everybody.